If you are looking to improve the moisture in your soil and the microbial activity in your soil, then biochar might be what you're looking for. In this interview with Lori Mann and Laura Decker, we take a look at what biochar is, how it's made, where to get it, if you can make it yourself, how farmers use it, farming thousands of acres, and how gardeners using it who are just growing food in their own backyard. We also take a look at why and how Lori started using the microbiometer to do her soil testing, saving her time and money, and how effective this microbiometer is in measuring fungal to bacterial ratio and the impact of compost teas, compost tea extracts, biochar, and any other ecological, biological, or solutions that you're using in your soil. Lori, along with her husband, Mark, have been very passionate about building healthy soil, first in their urban forests, and now they're working with gardeners and farmers. And I'm really excited to share their insights and what they're learning about how important biochar is in building healthy soil. I'm Natalie Forsbauer, host of the Soil Summit and founder of Heart and Soil magazine and Heart and Soil Living. Enjoy this conversation with Lori Mann of American Biochar and Laura Decker from the Microbiometer. Lori and Laura, it is a deep honor to be in the room with you. Thank you so much for coming in to share your insights and wisdom and experience around soil and health and biology and biochar and the microbiometer and all the things. So thank you for carving out the space.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm really excited because we actually haven't interviewed anyone about biochar yet, Lori. We have been very curious about it, and I think we've had some articles about it pop up here and there. But this is my first conversation, public conversation that we're sharing. So thank you for joining us and
Thank you for
sharing your
including me.
experience in that. Mhm. And before we jump in, Lori, just tell us how you got involved in biochar. Like, what was your background and where did you come from?
Well, my educational background was in biology and chemistry, and my partner and husband, Mark, he was in forestry and agronomy, soil sciences. And the two of us, as we continued working 6 years ago, we began to start seeing that there was a real issue with urban forests. We were tree people originally. Trees are plants and all of it grows in soil. But initially, our first love was trees. And we were starting to see that there was a real need for healthy soils so that we could have a healthy urban forest. And the trees in parks and cities, in municipals, and all over, they're so important. And what was being left behind for these poor trees to grow in was really poor soil. And we were recognizing that the soil was the first defense, the first support for healthy plants, healthy trees specifically. And we realized that what we were really, really missing was some kind of a stable carbon. So that brought us to biochar, because biochar is very stable, 8,000 years. It's going to be around for a long, long time, way before us, and longer than us. And so that got us to that, and as we continue to work with it, we saw that was very much a good component to add to soil.
Hmm.
So,
But how did you discover biochar? Like, how did that happen?
well, it's been around. It's been around a long time.
Yeah.
It's been around outside of the United States as well.
Mhm.
And everyone loves to come back to Terra Preta. Terra Preta is actually in South American jungles. They found these areas outside of city uh, ruins. And really what they really were just huge compost piles. I mean, they found pottery, they found bones, they found all sorts of stuff. And what they also found was they would intermittently, either it would burn on its own or it would burn intentionally. And they would find in these pockets, they'd find these areas where some of the organic matter would burn. And because it was stuff was on top of it, it wouldn't get a lot of oxygen and it would get really, really hot. And then what was left behind was a form of a biochar, along with basically being in compost, which is, by the way, today, if you had biochar and you took compost and you blended it together, it's a great combo anyway. But they were able to create a soil that was so prolific, so healthy, so good that they could feed in a small area a lot of people. Well, come down to today. Nowadays, what we do is we take any kind of biomass and we burn it. Now there's combustion, and you have combustion with oxygen, and you have pyrolysis, which is a type of combustion without oxygen. And so it's kind of like a pressure cooker kind of a thing where it really burns hard, and it carbonizes the biomass and creates this very hard black charcoal-like material. It's not charcoal. Charcoal's incomplete. But if you allow it to get really cleaned out, and it leaves behind this real hard material, and you can put that into the soil. And so a lot more that's been occurring in the United States. It was being done outside of the United States as well. And we've just really recently, in the last, I would say 5 years, give or take, there's been a big uptick on people learning about biochar, creating biochar, and biochar being pulled from all these different areas. And Natalie, I don't want to go into right now different choices of feedstock, things that you would actually pyrolyze to create a biochar. I don't want to go into that yet. If you'll let me later, maybe. But for right now, it's something that we are putting into the soil that is going to be there, like I mentioned, test quiz. How long, how many years can biochar hang around, ladies?
Forever.
Forever. 800. Yes. And so we have different things we can put into the soil. There are a lot of people who put manures in, chicken manure, or compost, or even mulch that ends up, breaking down and moving into the soil. Lots of different kinds of things. Those are all active, temporary types of carbons that you can put into the soil. What's not being added enough, especially in agriculture, is that tougher, larger, harder to break down types, instead of like green manures and things like that, materials that stay longer in the soil to aid that soil in more aeration, more of a difference of sizes and places and hole makers and spaces and things like that. It's much more consistent, homogeneous, and temporary, which is why we have to go ahead, Laura.
I've got a question because I hope other people have a question. I've got two. One, which are people going to ask, when you make the biochar, because there's not oxygen, is less carbon released into the atmosphere? Because you think about burning stuff, you're like, well, you release the carbon, but this is sort of burning stuff but keeping the carbon, right?
Okay, can we answer that one first?
Yeah.
Because you said you had two, and I don't want to. First of all, we had some people who are like, why are you doing, why are you burning that wood? And now you're taking away from, the biology. It's like, or you're in that process, you're creating more carbon or whatever. And here's the thing, what we utilize, it's going to decompose, and decomposition creates carbon dioxide. I'm on the side, you guys. I don't think carbon dioxide is as bad as everybody thinks, because carbon dioxide is what feeds plants.
That's right.
And if we have less carbon dioxide, you have less plant activity. So I'm just going to say that just to the side, because that might not make everybody happy. I'm coming back to the middle again. Mm-hmm. But yeah, what we really need is to be dealing with our soils themselves and getting that in there. So decomposition creates carbon dioxide, but the pyrolysis prevents that. And just like, and Laura's so smart, combustion with the oxygen creates carbon dioxide as one of the end results, whereas pyrolysis captures that carbon and you have other things given off. You release the oxygen, and a lot of water is released, and all that other kind of stuff, and the different kinds of organic resins that are in there. But what's left behind is a carbonized structure, and it is carbon. So instead of it going into carbon dioxide, as Laura was asking, it stays in the soil, and that's a great
Good.
capture.
Yeah, that was cool. I know people must be thinking, oh, because carbon is so
Conversation
hard.
right now.
It's
Yeah.
such a hard thing.
Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say, and you said it, but I like to say things in a different way, is when we talk about carbon in the soil, there's stable organic carbon, which biochar is amazing, and then there's all
Label.
different kinds of words for it, soluble carbon, right?
Yeah.
And it's the when you put in compost or manure, that's carbon that's easily, so microbes to grow, they're made of carbon, right? So microbes eat carbon.
Mhm.
A lot of times, if there's a plant growing, the plant will grab the carbon from the atmosphere, right? Feed it to the microbes, and that's how carbon gets sequestered, right? That's how it goes down, because the microbes need it to live. And if there's manure and other stuff, they can eat that. But things like biochar and stable organic carbon, which is carbon that is hard to digest, like you said, in times of microbial famine, right? Let's say drought, nothing growing, they can access that carbon, right?
Not that I understand. You're not going to,
Oh,
they're
they
not going to
don't.
access the carbon that's in the biochar. That carbon is not available to be eaten.
Ah, okay, okay.
But that's a good question, and that's a good point. And that's why
Okay.
actually we describe it as fixed carbon and active carbon.
Ah, okay.
Fixed, and even the really harder stuff, a lot of the more woody type things, even woody corn stalks and things like that. All of that will be available to mostly fungi and manures, and more green manures, which would be kind of plant type stuff. That's more available to bacteria, which is why a lot of times our agricultural fields have more bacteria than fungi. You've noticed that, Laura?
So
Yes,
it's
yeah, that's a
so
big problem.
Yeah.
is the biochar is supporting the fungi
Both, all of it, all
and the
of it.
bacteria, but
Yeah,
it
definitely bacteria love, but that's a good one, Natalie. Here's the thing. With the fungi are more sensitive to the things we do, like tilling, exposing it to air and light and things like that. The bacteria tend to bounce back. And Laura, jump in here because I know this is an area that you're very comfortable with. But the fungi is the one that gets broke, gets exposed, and although they're still there, they take a longer time to get back into the game. And about the time they do that, we do something to them again. And plus, they also don't have the available food. Liquid fertilizers do not feed most biology. Liquid fertilizers are in fact designed sort of to be in a condition that the plant can take without even utilizing the bacteria. And so we are starving these different microbes in our soils when we use too much liquid or mostly liquid fertilizers.
Yeah, liquid fertilizers break the symbiosis, sort of like
yeah, so when
Red
you say
Bull.
liquid, yeah, when you say liquid fertilizers, are you grouping compost teas and compost extracts into that, or is that something different? Just to be
I
clear.
should say put the word synthetic in front of there.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, they're designed to like feed. It's the analogy is they're basically IV feeding to a
Yes.
human, right? You
Yeah.
you could survive if you just got a bag of glucose forever, but you certainly wouldn't thrive and you wouldn't actually live that long. But
Yeah.
you need to eat food.
So this biochar thing is really cool. What I love about it is it's shown up in ancient practices for thousands, possibly millions of years, and it seems to be there's an awakening around bringing it back into practices. And I'm so curious And I'm excited because you're going to share some research with us, Lori, about how the impact that the biochar is having on different crops and different food that has been used. And you've been using the microbiometer to test the impact of biochar, and using the microbiometer saved you money. So we're going to get into that a bit later, which I'm excited about. But before we go there, tell us, can how easy is biochar to make at home, like for a home gardener or a home farmer?
Well, if you have the material and you have the time, it's pretty simple. Kofi Kapchavi up in Upper Michigan did a wonderful display on making biochar one evening with a bunch of people. He did a great job, and he took. Now there's go online. YouTube's got all sorts of people making all sorts of stuff, but I really liked this one from Kofi, and it was he took a what you call it that animals like to drink out of.
A trough,
Yeah,
Trough.
a metal
stainless
trough.
steel trough. Yeah.
Yeah, he took a trough and he made holes at the base and he filled that all up with a whole bunch of different pieces of wood. Just threw a bunch of stuff in there. It was messy. And he started burning it. And as it started to burn, he then began to start putting more and more pieces of wood in there and really pushing it down and creating that kind of top where oxygen could not get down into the lower part of that wood burning. And then when it got to a point where it was pretty far along, then he doused it with water, a whole bunch of water. And the reason is because if you kept letting the biomass, and this is the pieces of wood, burn, it will become ash. So you don't want to let it get to ash, number one. You want to really, really just soak that wood, stop it in place. You also have to get off the charcoal that would be on the around the outside and underside and get all that out. And then get from there those hard pieces of biochar that have had a chance to burn at a higher temperature and unexposed with very little oxygen. Now, the problem with that is you pick up and you have a lot of work. It was a bonfire. It was fun, beers and all that. But at the bottom of all that, there was this nice, beautiful pile of biochar. And you can grind that down. You don't want to be throwing great big pieces because then it doesn't, you only can get to the outside of each of those pieces. Smaller pieces of biochar, by the way, Natalie, are better because it exposes more of the pores. Okay.
Right. And when you say small, how granular or how big are you talking about? Like size of a
Well,
pea, a size of a carrot seed?
I like to call it rough ground coffee sized.
Okay.
If you can visualize that, that's a good size.
Yeah.
That is a good size. But it as it just mechanically breaks down, freezes, thaws, whatever, we walk on it or whatever, it will break down also. But the sooner that biology can get into it for the moisture, for the water, the air, the food, and the support or accommodations, protection, if you will, the better. But anyway,
Like
so
the
you
little
got the small
little
amount, and I'm sorry,
hotels. They're little hotels for
Yes.
microbes.
Yeah, exactly. I like I can't take credit for this, but soil reef. I really like that thought. I like soil reef. I can picture the little coral holes and stuff like that. But so the problem is it took a lot of effort and you had to have enough of biomass for that, and you didn't get a bunch out of that. So it would not be practical for someone with a large garden, but it's not going anywhere. So if you just did a little bit every so often, you added to it, it's good. Not everybody can do that, which is why companies like me offer that. Then you can go much, much larger. And we have some places where there's a mobile pyrolysis unit that can move around. And I think that that would be a great idea for somebody to go around to different farms and help, take a day or two and create some biochar for them. And then we have really huge gasification companies, but and they make a lot of stuff. And there's a lot of byproducts to biochar. You don't just get that hard black substance. You can also get wood vinegar, and you can get some different types of fuel. and graphite type stuff. And so there's a whole range. And I think that it depends on the amount of effort that you want to do. What a great idea to have a neighborhood thing. Why wouldn't municipals have stuff like that? They do a lot of collection of, compost type plant material. And you can create electricity from that. So
Hmm.
I think you can either you have to kind of make a decision on what you're going to make. You can't
Yeah,
do it all.
can a person, if a person has a fire pit out in the backyard, can they just keep grabbing the remnants of the leftover charcoaly kind of burnt pieces of wood that are left over? And are those anything like biochar? And would those be helpful to add to gardens, let's say if you had a backyard garden, or if you just had a small, like 1 acre market garden?
Um, I'm a biochar snob. So this is hard for me.
I appreciate
Biochar
that.
and charcoal are different. Charcoal is going to break down. Charcoal has a lot of remnant stuff that was in the plant material, and there's a lot of ash around it. Will it be okay? Sure. If they're burning and they've been throwing a lot of stuff on there, if they then can really douse it and stop that burning, and then get in through all of that, yeah, they could get that.
Yeah, I appreciate that because I think it's important to hold, I guess, tenderness and for what is possible for a starting place for people, right? And
Mhm.
also hold reverence and integrity for if you really, really want to go deep and get really good products, then this is what you need to look for. So is all biochar created equal?
No, no, it is
How do
not.
you know? How do you know good biochar?
As a matter of fact, I just recently did a talk and I took, so IBI is International Biochar Initiative, and we have a chapter in the United States called USBI, United States Biochar Initiative, and they have testing certification. And some of the biggest items on that certification that you need to know is its porosity. Now that's a certain number that you can change, but it's porosity. But my opinion is the biggest reason for biochar is its porosity. Just having big pieces of black in the soil that don't do anything but just are there, you can put rocks in there. Porosity is very important. The amount of ash is very important. Ash, you don't know what it really is, and it can really increase the alkalinity of the soil. Another thing that's super important, and I could get you, I could show you a list. And would you like me to do that right now?
Yeah, I'd love that. And
Okay.
even it would be great to do it like a handout, a PDF or something like that that we could give people so they know
Yeah.
what to look for. That would be amazing.
Okay. Well, I could do it now if you can share my screen. I don't
Yeah,
know.
you can
I
share
could.
your screen. Do you
Okay.
know how to do
Then I
that?
will open this up. Uh, let's see. I want to make sure. Is it me who does that, opening the
Yeah.
screen? Oh, okay. I thought only the host could do that.
Yeah,
Okay,
right
so
at the bottom. I
share
have it
my
set up so
screen.
you
Ah,
can do it.
share.
Hmm.
Yeah, great. Okay, great. Um,
And you can just share that one window. If you click on that one window when you see
see
everything.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now you guys have to tell me because I can't see yours so well. Share.
Okay.
Ah, I see that now. Okay, so here is um
So we actually just see important characteristics of biochar. I think
yes.
there we go.
There you go.
Yeah, so the pH is important because
Mhm.
but gosh, Laura, I hope it's okay. I'm taking up all your time.
Yeah, no, I'm this is exciting because I sort of know biochar is good, but this really helps.
Good, good. Well, so like I said, I did a talk and this is not in order of importance, but it was of different items, which if you did the certification testing, and I happen to have a whole bunch of different biochar from other people, I even have what I like to call poo biochar.
Pretty much it.
No,
Okay,
no,
Lori,
sorry.
I'm just gonna ask just for for time, what would be awesome is I'd love to go on into all these really like deep, but
Another time.
for time, I'm wondering if you could just touch on each of these and like why they're important to soil health.
Okay. And specifically, so well, pH. We're trying to not interfere with the pH of the soil because that can affect microbes. So we want to keep the pH. Now, biochar is always going to be just a little bit alkalinity, but if you have a lot of ash, which we have that ash percent as well, you're going to increase that alkalinity, and we want to keep that at low. I'm going to jump the moisture content for a second. Carbon content. The more carbon content there is, the higher percent, the more it's like, well, if it's not mostly carbon, what is it? That's really important. Salinity, you can get actually you can get some biochar that has a high salt content. Salt by itself is not bad, and excess of it is. Volatile matter is what's left behind, and the more volatile matter you have in your biochar, the less porosity you have, because guess what, as soon as you get that out, that's what's making the pores. Bulk density, you want to have a low bulk density because you want it to be just the carbon if possible. The hydrogen to carbon ratio, that's really important too, because it's showing you a mature biochar versus an incomplete, like charcoal will have a different ratio than that. And so of course we don't want heavy metals. Now, the moisture content is what I also think is important. So porosity in particular, you want a high porosity that would show through the bulk density. I don't want any heavy metals. And the moisture content's actually really important, because the moisture is going to be in that biochar and in those pores, and it's going to be a support to the walls of those pores when you travel or put it in soil or whatever. If you have those pores crushing, it doesn't matter how many pores you had, you don't have any pores if they're all crushing. So that water moisture has a tendency to do two things. First, it helps support those pores, but secondly, dry biochar can be very hydrophobic. That's really important. You don't want a dry one, but what we get a lot of out there, American Biochar Company sells our biochar by volume, not weight. Because just like those frozen turkeys that they fill with water and then freeze them, what are you buying? Frozen water. You don't want to be paying for weight of water. And our biochar can be up to 50% water. You can look at it, hold it in your hand, it still looks dry, but you're paying for water when you buy it by weight. And
So
that's
the
one of the things.
porosity is like how porous and the biochar is and how much moisture it
How many
can
holes? Yeah, yeah,
hold on to.
yeah.
Okay,
In
so that's
fact,
so cool.
if I'm still showing, here is a close-up of
Oh,
biochar.
I just love that.
Gorgeous. Yes.
Beautiful. It's magical. There's so much more information coming out about sacred geometry, and this just there's so much of that in this picture. It's beautiful.
This is the xylem. So we use our feedstock, what you use to burn biochar. Our feedstock stock is soft wood. Maple, some maples and oaks are hardwood, and it's harder to clean those pores out. But the trees have that xylem and phloem. Okay, flowing, the phloem is the down, and the xylem is bringing up, and all. And those are all these vessels. And when it's carbonized, that lignin skeleton is what I call it. It's carbonized. You see, these are the vessels. These are the phloem and the xylem and all of that. And so, a note also, the feedstock itself is important, because if you don't have pores like this, like in trees, pyrolysis doesn't make pores. It exposes pores. So that is one thing that's really important, is to start with something that has potential porosity.
Okay, I like that. That's really valuable. And Lori, what specifically is, like, if we're zooming out and zooming in at the same time, what specifically is biochar used for? Why would we want to use it? Like, what are we fixing, and like what problems are we fixing, and what are we amplifying for health?
Screen sharing is stopped. Okay, so it's us girls now. Great. Well, okay, so we're trying to improve our soils and add structure to our soils to create more structure allows for not and what you add with it or what you're doing alongside it is food for the soil biology, but we're creating structure, a foundation for that biology, whatever it happens to be, and starting out with the fungal and the different bacterials. And and the protease and the algae, there's all sorts of awesome stuff in there. And it's creating structure. So you're going to have less compaction. Compaction affects both the oxygen in the soil as well as the movement of water in the soil. Movement of water. You can put a lot of water on top of it, but if it's not moving and being a homogeneous spread, you're not getting that moisture to the living organisms. And compaction is a big one, in our soils right now. The more even sized everything is, the more likely it's going to be compacted. But your question is, what would we do? Well, I have a great piece of data that if I could show you
Yeah, please do.
water holding capacity of soils. What were you going to say, Natalie?
Yeah, just as you bring that up, I'd love to know how you apply biochar. Is it something that you just broadcast, or are you tilling it in, or like spading it in, or um
Well, yes to all of those.
mhm.
First of all,
And-
the way you can do. By the way, so it's granular, and that's not real easy to put in. You can't just use easily. You can't use like something that you would the fertilizer little oh gosh, what do you call those that you can put out?
Spreaders, the little.
Thank you. Yes, but we have had people do it. If you're in a garden, you can do it by hand. You can do it with buckets and things like that. If it's a large area, you can do compost spreaders and things like that. And you can get creative with some other things. But
right, and you could put it in with your compost as you're spreading it then.
exactly.
Right?
And, I have some tree people and some nurseries who make their own soils, and that's a component in there. So what's it going to do? Well, it's going to help hold water. It's going to create that protective homes, those little hotels for the biology, and it's going to hold food and oxygen as well. All those pores have a great capacity to maintain that in the soil. Now, here's the cool part, though. It's not the biochar that's going to make the soil better. I was mentioning, and I want to come back to that, but this is more important, I think. I've had people say, how can I change the pH in my soil? If I add the biochar, which is kind of alkaline, can I do that instead of lime? We're missing a point that the soil's going to be what the soil is. And that's always, whenever we throw anything at that, that's only a temporary change. A more long-term change is to create a balance of the biology, create a balanced microbiome in the soil and with the plants, and Laura was touching on it. She didn't use the big word exudates. I've heard people use photosynthase, but she said that they take that carbon dioxide and it brings carbon down into the soil. That is an actual natural process. Up to 35% of the sugars that a plant makes goes into the soil. I know your people have already probably heard this from different talks, but why in the world would a plant do that unless that area around its root zone where it's pushing out all those sugars and hormones and enzymes and flavonoids and all sorts of stuff to communicate, to support, to draw in and communicate with the plant. That biology is active and the plant is active and it wants it to be in there. And then so you get an increase in fungi, which gives you, sorry, I'm getting tingly in my head. So excited. The fungi create a glomalin. It creates a stickiness that helps start having those particles in the soil stick together and aggregate. And when you have them sticking together, and it's not just a stickiness, it's also, it allows water to move through those holes, oxygen to stay in the soil. All of a sudden, you have more of an increase in the biology because you have more water coming through, which creates more. And then the bacteria is creating this biofilm that is actually food for other organisms. And you just get all this, and all of a sudden, you have this communal creation. And what the pH is supposed to be is what it will be. the blueberry people that we talk to, they want to have a little higher pH. Well, let the blueberry plant push down into the soil and work a community, create a community around its root systems that will support that pH. That's what makes it. We keep wanting to throw in these temporary things. Laura was talking also about, the faster processing versus slower processing. Create the biology. What was that Field of Dreams? What did he say? Build it and they will come. I'm getting a little old, but not everybody gets that particular thing. So what does it do? It creates the most important thing that biochar can do is to create a situation that's going to support and enhance and grow that biology. And then all those other little things like water hole, wanting to water less, creating in that 8 to 10 inch layer I don't want to call it a barrier, but an area where what you're putting into that soil, any of the compost tea or whatever, isn't going to leach past the root system. It's going to stay there because there's a system to hold it together more. So I'm telling a lot of agricultural specialists to reduce any kind of fertilization processes they have by more than 30%.
when
If
they're
they're
using
not willing to
biochar.
change, because that's bridging. Sometimes they don't
So
want to give up.
when they're using biochar to reduce their chemical inputs by 30
They
to
can.
40%.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
did you say
Because
20 and 30 or 30, 40?
30% they can reduce.
30%. Wow.
And I have people who've done even more. I have
Wow.
lawn care people who are seeing a cycling of the thatch, and they don't have to use as much herbicides or pesticides because they're not having that buildup of material that is more of an environment for not healthy activity under the grass, for example. So that's just a little touch. So what does it do? It brings that soil back to where it wants to be, where it naturally wants to be, and it isn't guided by the plant. I laugh about. I said this once to Laura. I know we're called American biochar, but I really think we should be called American biology. So I don't want to give it over to Laura and you,
No,
Natalie.
I think that's so neat because it's funny when people talk about inputs and chemicals and all that stuff. You can't, if you're conventional and you're using all these chemicals, you can't just add biological or different products to the soil
Mhm.
because you are letting the plant be lazy by just
Mhm.
eating the fast food, right?
Right.
Um, you need to do things to support microbial life in the soil, like biochar, right? You don't
Mhm.
just throw microbes down on the soil that
That's a waste of money.
you've mistreated forever. They reproduce every 15 minutes, just give them a home and some water and air and root structure and they'll do it. But it takes time. You have to build it. And the reason biochar is so cool is because when people are really in crisis with their soil, that's one of a really good way to sort of start that virtuous cycle again to say, you know, this is a relatively easy way to get into building soil structure by I like that reef, putting a reef down and then letting the biology grow around it.
Mhm.
Because people do ask all the time, where you start, what do you do? But if you put down biochar and don't reduce everything else, then you're not
Right.
doing enough to
It'll
support the
help, but
biology.
it's not as effective. Its potential is suppressed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you talked about the plants feeding the microbes, right? Because they barter in the root systems.
Yes.
If the plant doesn't need nitrogen or things from the microbes, it takes its business to Amazon, right? And doesn't support small business. I like a little analogy. So you want to make sure that you're giving the plant an incentive to support microbial life as well with that bartering system.
Yeah. Yeah.
So very
Um,
neat.
if I may, Natalie, so you asked about applications. So you can blend it in if you're making mixes. I've got some nurseries and some tree nurseries and some greenhouses where they're adding that mix. 5% is great. If you want to be aggressive, if you have some, if uh, you can go all the way up to 10%. 2 to 5% is good
Two to
of
five
whatever the
percent,
total
like
volume is.
in total volume. Okay.
Yeah, into the total volume and mixing on that. Or if you're doing a backfill for trees, 5 to 10% on the top layer.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't help as much at the bottom as it
Mm-hmm.
could at the top. But you know what we found is this granular biochar was a little bit hard to handle at big amounts. You asked about very large as well. And using a compost spreader is okay. That's good. But I love this. My business partner and husband, Mark, he realized that there was a missing component. And so what we end up doing is we end up taking our biochar, a very high quality biochar, and we wet mill it down to 5 micron size. Pores are still there. There's pores that are smaller than that. That's still a porous particle. And we put it into water and we put it into liquid humate. We get it just in water. We call it 5M, naked char 5M with just the biochar. And then we blend it with linardite. And it is important, by the way, just a side note, to always blend biochar. If it's a good porous biochar and you don't mix it with other things, you could have nutrients pulled from the soil into the biochar initially. Now, eventually it'll turn around, but you don't want to put hard, really good, porous, a hole must be filled. And so you want to blend it with something. And you had mentioned compost tea. Compost tea is a great one with this Vital Blend or Naked Char 5M, where the biochar is 5 micron size. And we chose that size because it'll go through any screen. We have
Interesting.
farmers putting it in the middle of their center pivot and going out. You can also have it in your lines,
Mm-hmm.
drip
Mm-hmm.
lines, and pouring it. And we did that. And the important thing, if you remember, I said water, the moisture content is very important because a dry biochar will be hydrophobic. So you wet, if it has a nice moisture content, it will blend in, it'll lay and it'll capture and hold water. It won't resist it, so to speak. That's not the right word, but repel. That's what I meant to say. But so we made this 5 micron sized biochar by wet milling it so it's never dry. Because when you get smaller and smaller and smaller, it's easier and easier
Right.
to get dry. So we literally, the whole process, the moisture is always intact. And
Mm.
that really was a great change. And if I may share something I was going to share with you earlier.
Yeah, for sure. So you can apply that like on 1,000 acres of wheat or
Mhm.
an apple orchard or a vineyard or
Well, and as a matter of fact, we had an apple orchard that we did this, and we saw an increase in water holding capacity. And I want to point this out. Can you see this graph
yeah.
okay?
Mhm.
Okay, we had an application done in June. Excuse me. Yeah, the beginning of June, and we did a test, and immediately we saw a water holding capacity change of with and without 41% in this one blueberry field. And that was the Vital Blend. The granular, we also saw it. We don't see as much of a change as quickly, I should say. We see a change, but it takes longer when we use granular. And I believe that is because the smaller size of the biochar moves through the soil more easily and comes into contact more quickly and more homogeneously with more biology.
Hmm.
That's what I think.
Oh, so you're noticing a quicker
Response.
impact, a response when
Mhm.
when the liquid, when this tiny, tiny, tiny 5M
Yeah. My
biochar is being
products
used, which
manager,
totally makes sense.
Jessica, says it's like going to a cafe down the street versus the mountain on the other part of the state.
Right. Well, it's the same with when
Uses.
we're taking when we're using like supplements. It when we just use like a
Oh,
vitamin,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
vitamin
So,
vitamin echinacea as opposed to the tincture, our body's absorption is super, super fast. So it kind of makes sense that the
so
soil
those
would
people that are
respond.
making that biochar and they're taking it from the area where they burned it,
Mhm.
they should try, and they can even just use like those cement blocks. Just put it on there and just grind it. The smaller you can make it, the better. Drive a car over it with some board over the top, whatever. You can
Yeah,
make
put
it
it between
smaller.
some
But
things.
so we had this increase in water holding capacity immediately. We also then saw and this is in 2019, we also saw a change in the microbe populations in the same grouping, and this was the next month. Now, I have to tell you, I wish at this time that I had had the microbiometer because it did take a little while for me to send the stuff in and then have it come back. And once you pick it up and you then send it and everything else, we're already starting to see a degradation of accurate biology readings because they're dying. But
Hmm.
there's different ways you can see that if you do like the phospholipid
Hmm.
Yeah,
outside.
feel fun.
I refer to you on that one, Laura, but anyway, so we see this increase in micropopulation. Then this is so cool. Oopsie. Hmm.
It's amazing. And
This is the one I want you to look at.
okay.
This is the nutritional information.
Can
This
you
is the
please
improvement.
blow that up a little
Can I
bit?
make
Can you
it
zoom
bigger?
in just a tiny bit so the numbers are a little bit more clear?
Yes.
They're clear, but just yep,
No,
there
no,
we go.
I
Thank you.
appreciate that. Yeah. How's that?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, good.
Maybe
Um,
center and scroll up a bit. It's right now
slowly.
it's at the very bottom of our screen.
Gotcha.
Yep, there you
There we
go.
go. Okay, good. Okay, so here we actually did a testing at the end of that same year. Now, this is the first time, and it was a late application, by the way, and these locations. And we harvested, and we had differences with versus without, and we had increases in moisture, overall moisture. We had total sugar increase. We had total dietary fiber. That one I'm going to come back to a second. Protein, 125% increase. Antioxidants, 11%. What would have happened if this was the next year and we kept on doing it? What would have happened if we'd started it in the spring instead of
Gives me
early
goosebumps.
summer? And we see all these things, but again, it comes back to that biology. We also have a really neat shoot.
So just summarize again, Lori, what is the biochar doing for the soil food web, for the biology, for the fungi that's in the soil? Because if the biochar is not really doing
Food.
anything, it's like the drive-in or the reef or the hotel or the house, the foundation, which I just love because we talk about in personal development, we talk about building your own personal foundation of who you are, what your values are, and what you believe in, and what's important to you. And understanding what that is before you build your skyscraper, right? Because we build a skyscraper in the city and we don't have a solid foundation, it's going to fall over. And so the same thing in the soil, if we don't have that foundation of biochar, for example, or that carbon that doesn't break down as you described it, um, then our soil is I don't know if weaker is the right word, but it's more it burns up more quickly, right? It doesn't have places to restore and reset and
I always like to think about it as being resilient, right?
mm,
It can weather some drought, it can
Mhm.
weather some poor years because it has, just like pioneers used to have food stored in the cellar, right? That the biochar helps the microbes do that, to store water for longer, to store nutrients for longer, and to be able to weather um,
Mhm.
adversity, right? I mean, I think when we think about farming in the United States, the farmers just want every year to be the same, right? Like we want like you want it to be like horticulture inside, right? I control all these things, but of course we don't, right? It's it's too uncontrollable. And if we don't have soil that's resilient, if something happens that we didn't expect, then the whole system sort of collapses.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so with the biochar, if it's providing a foundation and a safe place and resiliency for our microbes and soil health, how often are we needing to apply and bring that
Mhm.
into our soils? That, is that multiple times a year, yearly, every 5 years?
No, and two things on that. We talk about the NRCS and amounts and what they're helping pay for farmers being put some of that on. The amount that you need it's not overall right now the thought that you need more than you need. First of all, if it's not going anywhere after a couple years, depending upon if I'm working on a soil that has been taken care of, that has been precious, just a little bit's fine. In fact, a really good organic farm, I would maybe put, for example, talking about the liquid, a half a gallon per acre.
Mm.
People, they're always surprised about that. You don't need a lot, and we're again, we're just trying to create this soil. And if you come back to it once a year, you come back to it again the next year. Now, there are some soils that are coming from standard farming practices. We would suggest definitely 2 gallons per acre, and that's the concentrate. And however they get it out, they can put as much or as little water as they want to. We can mix it with other things as well. But you don't need a lot. And I think that that is something that is very sensitive to Mark and I, because we're watching it. There's this big push about putting all this out there. Oh my gosh. I was reading this study, and I won't specify anything, but they were saying they didn't see as much of an impact as they would have liked. And they were putting 20 cubic yards of granular biochar on there, whether they're working it or not. It's not a soil of itself. So we're creating a soil that is a low percent in its upper level. Biochar isn't designed for that. It's not, especially if it's fresh biochar. We want to add structure and she's right. Resiliency is the results here. When we have any kind of shallow tillage or whatever, any kind of pulling up of stuff, and we're exposing it, we see fungal populations bounce back quicker because they're hidden, they're protected. Compost teas. When you put a compost tea out there, and if you've put a little bit of biochar in there, or if you've just soaked the granular biochar with stuff, it is protecting. So your survivability of biology that you put out there increases exponentially. Because if you put it out there and it's exposed to air and the sun and all that other stuff, it's not going to survive. It becomes food for other biology, which in itself isn't a bad thing. But you're already increasing the survivability of what is either already there or what maybe you might be putting in there.
Mm.
I I think this one chart is really cool, and it kind of shows a little bit what what's happening in the soil that we don't realize. We have seasonal changes in our biology in the soil as well.
Mhm.
And resiliency. I am going to keep with that. As a soil goes through the season, if it's a dry, hot summer, you are going to see an impact on the plant. You're going to see an impact on the soil biology as well. It is affected by all of that. Moisture levels are going to go down. The nice thing is a good, healthy soil microbiome. You're going to have water being held by all the components. That glomalin and biofilm that we were talking about earlier, that holds water. The biochar itself is holding water. I showed you we had a higher water holding capacity in those soils in the earlier one that was using biochar. We were utilizing the microbiometer for the last 3 years, and we were communicating. And this is blueberry farms. We have some beautiful blueberry farms, lots of different farmers. Thank you all on that in the Southwest Michigan area. And we had a lot of farmers who were utilizing the Vital Blend 5M in particular. And to communicate with them, they're willing to, and I really feel blessed because that's their baby. That's how they pay their mortgage. I mean, it's an economic thing. And I have a feeling that if we looked out and took a big picture of all the stuff that comes out and is set out and laid out to all of these people who are interested in regenerative and restorative and organic and everything else, there's a lot of stuff out there. And I hope that all of it works, but I would say maybe not all of it works. And or it's just economically not feasible or whatever. So resiliency is important, and these people have allowed us to have our product brought in as they are raising their plants. So we want to show them real time what's happening. And one of the ways we can do it is we can test at the harvest. And that's at the end of the year, though. One of the things we were doing is we would go out there and we'd say, let's, if there's a fields that you're not interested in using this, let's do that. Or let's do the very first year. Let's see what we've got. And let's do some comparisons, because we're telling you that this is going to help with the biology, and the biology is ultimately going to make a healthier plant that's going to make a better fruit. Okay, for us.
Mm-hmm. And Lori, I feel like you're going to go into telling us about the soil testing, and which I deeply appreciate, because I think it's important to have an understanding of what's happening. And before you discovered the microbiometer, how were you doing the soil testing, and how did the microbiometer change the way you do soil testing?
Well,
Is that an
that's
appropriate
a
place
great
to ask
question,
that?
Nellie. Yeah. We did utilize Oregon states, and they did a good job, but I think they got a lot of people, and it took a long time, and you had to ship it out there. It had to be tested, and then we would sometimes have to wait a really long time. And if I'm trying to communicate with someone at their field, it was, well, we'll get back to you. And sometimes it'd be the end of the season, and their interest might be lost, or whatever. And of course, if I wanted to see how my product helped them, I would do that at the end, and then it would still be late. It literally, we could lose a year. We could lose a season of growing, and that's not good. But I could be sitting there, we could be doing soil testing, and then within 20 minutes, I could be giving them what their fungal to bacterial ratio is, and the overall amount of microbiology in there. And then I could come back, as we did in the summer later, and we'd see this. And when you would do it with and without, and then in the fall we could do it. We could also do it in the winter. Biology doesn't stop in the winter. It's just I don't want to go out there and test it in the winter. We're up here in Michigan. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, have fun with that.
but I would say the thing, and I've actually have this one gentleman who he actually was doing his own, so proud of him. He bought his own microbiometer test
Awesome.
and kit. And he was doing these, and he would share with us on this. And just to look to the right, the far left of your screen. This is before he did his applications from us. And you can, and I don't know if anybody's ever seen the results of this. This is really cool. These are 3 different tests. And at the top, you can see, and that's the U is the micrograms of carbon per gram of soil. And it was 54 micrograms. We moved to, and that was May 2nd. Check it out.
Wow. And
Days
is that the
later.
only thing he did?
And, that's the only thing he did different. Yeah.
Amazing. And so just to be clear, these maybe you can take your cursor and go over top of the microbiometer little squares. And so these are using the microbiometer
You're talking about this
feedback.
part?
Yeah, that's the little I don't know what it is.
What do you call that? The colorimeter?
No, we call that a test card.
Yeah, thank you.
That's how it works. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to just give a
Yeah,
little
take
bit?
over. This is
Yeah,
corn.
yeah. I just
This
want
is
to preface
corn.
this. I just want to preface this because the microbiometer is a product that we really amplify at Heart and Soul, because we think it's a great tool that's affordable that people can use. And
And it's real time.
Yeah, it's
That's
real
it.
time.
Like I said, I could talk about the results in the fall, and it's already too late. It's
Yes.
just it was a game changer.
Yes, and understanding
Game
all the
changer.
different types of biology and stuff like that under the microscope is really valuable. But if you don't have that microscope available to you as well, and also pulling it out and all the things, the microbiometer just gives you this beautiful snapshot of like what's
Mhm.
happening at a bird's eye view. So, Laura, if you could just take us through
Yeah, yeah, I'll do it
what
very quick.
like.
And I love this slide. We're definitely going to steal it from you, Lori, because as a small company, we try to take stuff all we want. I'm Laura Decker. I'm with Microbiometer. We make, here it is, our little kit box.
Yes, I have
Um,
one too.
oh, isn't
I
that
have a
cute?
refill.
Yeah.
I love it. It looks like a science experiment. It acts like a science experiment. What you do, it was developed to be used on field moist, fresh soil right away because you're testing soil biology. Soil biology is alive. Microbes reproduce every 15 minutes. They die even faster in if they get dried out or left too hot or too cold. So the point of sending soil to a lab, right, is that you collect it, put it in a bag, put it in the mail. You don't know how they're keeping it. A lot of labs keep it in the refrigerator. Okay. Some of them dry it out and then they test it. So the soil that you sent them is not the soil necessarily that they're testing, or you don't quite know, right? And we know that 5 and 10% is a significant number to a grower, right? If you're improving your soil biology 10% a year, year over year, that's amazing. So if you have errors in the testing that are that big, you can't really tell. So we developed this test. You go out in the field, you take soil right from where the roots are growing. You do a little science experiment. We have an app with all the instructions and we have an algorithm behind it. I will say that this is designed to be used on agricultural soil, not directly on amendment, not on, people do use it on compost. Um, but it needs to have soil, mineral soil in it for the test to work. And then you
Gardeners
draw.
use it. Sorry for interrupting you, but gardeners use it too, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Gardeners use it too.
Not just agriculture, like thinking growing lots
Yes.
of food for
Yes.
people.
That's why I meant real soil.
Yeah.
It's not for hydroponics. It's not
Yeah.
for all those things. And really it's used by people to say, I'm trying, I understand how important soil biology is to the entire cycle of human health, planet health, right? And financial health of being a grower. And I know the foundation is soil health. I want to increase the microbes. There's thousands of products out there. Which one will work for me, right? Because some products works only in some environments. Biochar is fairly universally
Mhm.
it is universally deployable. It's one of the few things that are. So people use it to do exactly what Lori said. I'm going to go out, I'm going to test the soil at different places and different times in my farm right away, right by myself. The cell phone app will read the results. It returns micrograms of microbial carbon and fungal to bacteria ratio. So,
And I love the
um,
fungal to bacterial ratio. That is so
fungal,
powerful.
yeah, and it's this is not a once and done test. You don't test your soil and then say I got an A, right? Because things change. These results are incredible, particularly the fungal to bacteria to go up.
Mhm.
Um, and we do know that in very poor soils, the fungal content is fairly non-existent. So we manufacture and sell them ourselves. We're partners with Horton Soil. It's so much more fun. And I did this, I talked last year, and finally this year I said, I'm so tired of just talking about science and what you could do if you were a farmer, because Lori is out there with people saying, this is a product that works. Let me show you that it works in the mean during the year. And at the end of the year, you could really see when you do nutrient density of your food and look at the yield and also look at, are you spending less on inputs, right? We know that chemical and artificial herbicides and pesticides are both damaging to the planet, damaging to the people who eat the food, and also wildly expensive.
Yeah.
So if you can, right, get something that's better for the planet, better for the food supply, and better for your bottom line, let's do it. But there is a lot of testing involved, which is why we use this kit, and a lot of input and amendment companies are putting this in the hands of their agronomists and advisors to really do ground level truthing of what's happening. So it's very fun, and I think the funnest part is that there's people out there that, Lori, are working with that are improving, they're sequestering carbon, right? I
Yeah,
mean, we are in a crisis, despite what some people say, and plants are designed to sequester carbon. That is
yeah.
their
You
thing.
get out of
And
their way.
and and we also need them because they're beautiful to look at, to sit under, and to eat. So, why not help them do all those things better instead of hurt them? So it's very fun. I love this graphic again.
Yeah.
But
And
that, yeah, so
go
that's
ahead.
us. Anyone who knows, we
This is
just
cool.
ship it around ourselves. It's relatively inexpensive. You can get testing down to about $8 a test so that you can play around, particularly people in your garden. You want to make this very robust, self-sustaining environment. You don't want to constantly be putting things in all the time, and you don't have to if you're doing all the things that you could be doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So this was an excitement thing when they looked at it. This will show this FB is the fungal to bacterial, and like she said, we're seeing a lot of these agriculture soils with zeros or so small 0.1. This was just amazing. What's the goal, Laura? Do you ever talk about that?
It's really hard to say. 1-to-1 is kind of the goal, but when you talk about things like blueberries and food and wine and some things, people want a lot more, 5-to-1. But normally, at least a 1-to-1
Mhm.
is kind of what people want, particularly for row crops. But food that has, a flavor portfolio based on the soil, like tomatoes, people want it much higher. Um, but but yeah, that improvement is terrific.
It is, and it's not even the end of the year, and it's at its lowest point. If I go back to that other where we were
Which is really
using like,
interesting. And I just want to vocalize this. So we're seeing like the initial test is 4% fungal, 96% bacteria. And then it
Mhm.
goes up to 20 days later, and this is just from the soil kind of waking up with the biochar in the soil. It goes to 7% and 93% bacterial, 7% fungal. And then on the 10th of June, which is like a month and 8 days later, it goes from 4% to 35% fungal and bacterial from 96% to 65%.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
yes,
the overall counts are pretty good.
and
And then you
and
can think,
yeah, this is
what about
even
next year? Next year will be even
yeah,
Yeah.
healthier.
yeah.
Yeah, and it goes from zero, basically 0 to 1, back fungal to bacterial to 0.5 fungal to 1.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
huge.
and we minimally want 1-to-1, but fungal should usually be the best case scenario. The fungal should be high. 2-to-1 is actually great, and like we mentioned earlier on in it, the mycelium are very sensitive to disruption. So,
Mhm.
which is why when you have a no-till area, their fungal count is much higher.
Mhm. Mhm.
So, yeah.
And I guess we talked about not all biochar being created equal, and I'm guessing like some biochar would be approved and okay to be used on certified organic and biodynamic farms, and others might not be approved. And I know yours is OMRI certified, and for America, and for us Canadians, we have to jump through more hoops. Even if it is OMRI certified, we have to get it. We have to make sure it is still okay. Do you know, has anybody, do Canadians use your product yet, Laurie?
Um, yes, I do know that they have used it.
Awesome.
I'm trying to think of some immediate examples, but yeah, we've had some of that. Um, but not sold directly from us. It
Mhm.
might be going through some other distributors that we have.
Yeah.
Likely.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's nice to be able to find, because a lot of the times, and I know biochar is not a biological input, it's still a soil input. And a lot of the times when people are farming organically or biodynamically, um there's other things that are put in with the soil biology, which makes it so they can't use it when they're, and so this is just wonderful to amplify that people can use it.
Yeah. Well, so Laura and I were at Acres, and I ran up to her and said, "Look at this." And I said, I've always thought of the soil biology kind of as a linear thing, a straight shot kind of a thing. And then, of course, I started doing a little bit of research after I started getting this data. Why was it dipping? The blue is without biochar. And so we have a definite increase from 400 to 632 increase in the amount of, we saw that test for the corn, that would show you the total amount of biological, the biology in the soil. And then we saw this dip. And this was over 3 years of collecting data in these. And I was like, why is it doing that? And I was realizing, well, lots of different things, the temperature, the moisture. In the middle of summer, it's lower. And also one other thing, coming back to that exudates, what is put into the soil? This gets me really excited. What is put into the soil by the plant is a continuation of a communication, and food is part of it. It's communicating with enzymes and flavonoids and all this other stuff that goes in there. Hormones, big time, and pheromones too. And the plant and the biology, and the biology is also putting stuff into that soil and is being pulled up. And that's what it is. There's so much food in the soil that's not directly accessible to the plant, that we put nitrogen, the NPK, every year in some of these agriculture. Where is it all going? Well, it's either moving through and not staying where the roots are, getting beyond the roots, and or it's not in a form that, or becomes not in the form of a usable food for the plant. So what's also happening here, you guys, is my question. I think I know, but with that, and what's happening around now, that we would have a population reduction at that point. And then the cool part, if you look at this, the harvest, both with and without, so that kind of actually makes that more relevant. But where it's always higher, we see this increase in the harvest time, and there's more available food at harvest time for the biology, right? Especially the fungi. But what's happening, and I'm like, the exudates are changing, because right now seed production and flower production is occurring or occurred. And so that, when is a mother going to be keeping more of the nutrients, kind of a thing, for her babies? I think that shows us that there is the exudates that are going out change. They change with condition, environmental stresses. They can change with the plant phase of its growth. Ooh, it's so cool. And I love that we were able to gather this up with the microbiometer and see these changes. And and without it being, we're a little company.
Yeah.
Honestly, we're not a research company. So cost does matter to us on our end. I'm not being paid to do this. And probably, if it's ever shown up, it's going to be somebody else doing it, because I guess it really costs a lot of money to put it in research papers. I don't know, but I don't really care. I'm doing it in the ground with these people. And I am so thankful that I can use something like it does sound like an advertisement, but it's facts. I mean, this is really cool. And I am able to do what I told you at the beginning, Natalie, where we want to restore, rejuvenate, bring soils back to a better position. And if it takes doing this kind of thing, yay, because I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. And I mean,
Yeah.
it is an advertisement, not an advertisement, right? Because Microbarometer has been a great supporter and partner with Heart and Soil. And we offer a 15% discount with a Microbarometer using the code HeartSoil15, HeartSoil15. So it's not an advertisement, it's go buy the micropometer. And at the same time, if you're looking for a soil testing kit that's really affordable, that is reliable, that shows your fungal to bacterial ratio and really can give you insight into the impact of the compost teas, inputs like biochar are actually having on your soil, then this little kit right here is something that we really support and believe in because it's affordable. Anybody can use it. Anybody can use it. All you need is a phone, an internet connection, some soil, some water.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are totally safe, so we can send to Canada and the EU and all the countries. There's
All around
nothing
the
in
world.
it. All around the world, your kids can use it. There's nothing that's harmful in it,
Yeah.
which is really important to us because some testing does rely on dyes that are quite dangerous, and so we don't want to contribute more to the problem. Although most of the kit, sadly, is plastic, but that's because farms are breakable places. So, but everything you reuse. So we try our
What a
best.
good
Well, thank you. I think
educational
Lori,
tool.
it was so yeah, it is. We have a classroom kit and science fair stuff. Lori, it was so fun to have you come talk about how people use it out in the field because that's the exciting part. Are we helping people get the data they need to make decisions to make the changes that they want to
Yes.
make? Um,
In real
and
time.
and if it helps you, great. If it doesn't help you, there's lots of other things to spend your money on. But yeah, that's really exciting for me. Thank you for having us on.
Yes,
Lori is
thank
just a
you.
Yeah.
fun person. We always see her at Acres USA conference, so it's
Yeah,
always
that's
it's
so
always
awesome.
nice to run into people in the real life in the same
It
space.
is.
Mhm.
Yeah, we'd love Acres, and I can't wait to get to one of their conferences live. My last baby is graduating this June, and I am intending on being more in the room with people. So I look forward to seeing you guys there. Um, and Lori, I just want to amplify one of the reasons we wanted to bring you in and talk about biochar is one from your lived experience of using it and all the curiosity and the research that you've done around it and your background in it. And the other reason is because you were using the microbiometer to measure the results. And I wanted to give people a real world example of of how it's being used so people can see really, really how easy it's being used and
Yes.
how scientifically based it is. It's a fabulous product. So thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you.
Um, you said something really important before we hopped into this interview, and I just wanted to touch on and ask you both, like, what's so important about the work that you're doing right now? And Lori, I'll have you go first. Like, why biochar and why soil?
Well, I think we're in a crisis. I think we're in crisis mode. I think we are very, I think a lot of effort and money and policies are being, I don't want to say wasted, but misfocused. Is that a word? We need to look to our soils for that carbon sequestration, but more importantly, we need to look to our soils so that we're creating food. So what if we are unhealthy as heck and we have a buildup of carbon dioxide? So what if our bodies are falling apart? We are reducing our overall longevity in life. I know that soils are going to help the bees. I know that soils are going to help children with chronic illnesses because they're not able to be bringing in foods. Food is medicine in some forms. I know that cleaner water keeps coming back to soil, and we saw that, and so that's why that's what motivates us, is to help in a small way, bringing back soils to a healthier, more just better soils. That's a big question.
I know it's a big question, and I just know it's so near and dear to your heart. So I just wanted to ask you that. Laura, tell us why soil is important to you.
Oh, good. Well, thank you. Soil is important for me for two reasons. One is very, very personal. The company, as many people know, was started by my mother, Dr. Judith Fitzpatrick. And it was really her end of life mission to have it be a successful business, and also for her to contribute in a way that was meaningful to the world. She loved biology, she loved science. She knew that people at heart really like to understand science and
Mhm.
biology,
Sure.
and she wanted it to be particularly accessible to smallhold farmers in developing countries. That was one of her things. So she developed a test that was cheap, that didn't rely on satellites or robots or really expensive machines. Um, and that can help people in their journey to move away from conventional agriculture towards more climate friendly agriculture. So to continue her work, she passed away, as did my father, in 2022. She actually worked until 10 days before she passed away from cancer. So I had her working up until the very end, which was wonderful. And so it is really meaning for me to continue her work. And also, I just love it. I mean, the people in the regenerative and the climate friendly ag space are wonderful. This is not a cutthroat environment. Everyone is in the same boat, pulling the same oars, trying to do their part to make a difference. And it is really meaningful work because of that. There is so much work to be done that the competition is sort of, there's lots of soil tests out there. They're all a little bit different. All of them are good. They have their pros and cons. We're not replacing anybody else. We're hoping to fill a niche. And then also, of course, now as I become an empty nester, I would like to do something that is just not making money for other rich people, but is trying to move the needle as well. So I love it. I have a company. There's four of us, so I also am making some domestic employment, which feels very good. So it's just all pretty nice. I feel very fortunate, and I get to go on Zooms and talk to really interesting people. So that's why.
Yeah, and why soil? Like, what's so meaningful to you about soil? Why healthy soil?
Everyone who works in soil is just like, it's everything, it's
It
the
is.
grail. But it is, when you think about it, it can sustain the life of everything on the planet, right?
Mhm.
I mean, so can the sun, but we haven't really monetized the sun quite yet. But or exploited it, although we should with solar. But it's the basis for stuff. It's where we live, it's what we eat. It can save us from climate change if we do the right things. Um, and it's where microbes live, which, you gotta love.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I just picture myself going out, um, and standing in a patch of really good smelling soil. And it is a soul thing too. It is. There is a connection. There's some microbes that actually produce a kind of a smell that actually can give us some relaxation. There's some phytochemicals, but it's where everything starts, and it's where everything ends. It's the
Oh,
yeah, generally speaking, soils,
sure.
with the problems that we see a lot of times, Mark and I, it starts with the soil. There's a problem with the soil, and what's the best way to fix it? The soil. So yeah, there's
So true. I can't remember the first part of the name, but it's something vacay, the microbiology it helps release and amplify serotonin in your
uh,
body.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what we're talking about. Yeah.
That is exactly what you're talking about.
And
Yeah.
why?
And
Why? You got to ask the question, why?
yeah, and I was recently doing just a small talk for a local Rotary here in Chilliwack, and it was about reducing stress through nature. And so I touched on soil, of course, and force bathing, and then at the end, a psychiatrist actually stood up and he said, we're actually subscribing or prescribing force bathing to our
Ah,
patients now because it is more effective than a lot of the drugs that are being used. I thought that was so powerful.
yeah.
Yeah.
I intentionally, even in the wintertime, get out there with my feet, bare feet. And I know a
Me too.
little bit of what you guys do, Natalie, that you're privy to is that soil touch. And just the act of getting out there, I think that's healthy all by itself.
Yeah.
It is. It is. Yeah, it's so true. Um, well, Lori and Laura, thank you so much for your time today. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that's on your heart that you wish, people, a question that you wish people asked or
There's so much more out there.
yeah,
This is a great talk, though.
Yeah.
I really appreciate all the time. And Laura, thank you very much for being patient
Oh,
with me because I know.
I love hearing about it. So thank you, Natalie, for arranging this. It's really
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
yeah, it's been an honor and a pleasure to meet you, Lori, and to be back in the room with you, Miss Laura Decker.
Yeah.
Oh,
You,
yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Thank
Big
you.
love.
Bye.
To learn more about Lori and Mark's work with biochar, head on over to ambiochar.com, or you can find them on Facebook and Instagram at American Biochar Company and on Twitter or X at AM Biochar. And to learn more about the microbiometer and to get your very own microbiometer and save 15% using the code HEARTSOIL15, you can head on over to microbiometer.com. That's microbiometer.com. They can also be found on Facebook at Microbiometer Soil Test, on Instagram at Microbiometer, and on X or Twitter at micro_biometer. You make yourself an amazing day. We appreciate you. We love you and we want to see you thrive.